Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Yat Koroshri Yadashnasi, that all that you have, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away should be done as an offering to me. Yagyaratat kamanon yatra lokomam. Krishna tells in Gita that work done as a sacrifice for him must be performed. Otherwise, whatever work we do is the cause of bondage. Savai pongshang paro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshacham ahayitaki apratihata yajatma suprasidhat. The supreme occupation for all humanity is loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. This is the summit of all spiritual revelation. Unconditional, loving service to the Supreme Lord. Throughout the world, there are many religious systems with different types of buildings in which people come to worship the Lord. Unfortunately, it is almost impossible to find a place where people are striving for true perfection. The Holy Scriptures of the world give various alternative paths, which are actually means of gradually elevating the faithful. But the culmination is described in Gita. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanapamam papadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurava. After many births in such endeavors of cultivating religious knowledge, when one comes to perfection, that person surrenders to Vasudeva, to Krishna, knowing him to be the cause of all causes and all that is. When Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he told us that if he were to preach like so many of the other yogis or spiritualists that came from India, he could have had tens and millions of disciples. But he would not compromise the highest truth. Srila Prabhupada was very merciful. To whatever level a person was willing to extend themselves in the service of the Lord, he appreciated He encouraged. However, the conclusion of what we should be striving for was never compromised. Krishna taught in Gita various levels on the path of yoga. But again and again, he concludes his course of instruction with surrender. Knowing him to be the Supreme Person, the cause of all causes, the absolute truth, and to surrender with love. Bhakti mam abhijanati yavanyastasmi tattvata. Because it is only by devotion that Krishna could be known as he is. Jnana, karma, vairagya, astanga, all of these different principles are only spiritually of great value to the extent they serve the real purpose, the real need of the soul, which is bhakti. Bhakti is to love, to serve with love. Although it's a very sweet concept, the practical application is difficult in this world. People really do not want to hear. Because of our conditioning, we are addicted to serving our mind and our senses, and those things in relation to the mind and senses. To wholeheartedly serve the Lord is a very foreign concept to the vast majority of human population. In fact, it's frightening for most. When Srila Prabhupada talked about giving up sinful activities, in the Islamic, Christian, and Jewish faiths, they talk about giving up sins. But Srila Prabhupada talked about giving up the root of sin, the false ego. That anything that's not done in loving service to the Lord is a type of sin, because it is exploiting what belongs to another. His movement was sometimes labeled as a cult, a dangerous cult. And actually, in one sense, it is correct. According to the dictionary, a cult is a religious sect, which we are. It's a bona fide religion, which has its roots in the spiritual world, beyond time. Yes? Some religions claim they are 2,000 years old. Some 2,500 years old. Some 5,000 years old. Some 1,500 years old. But what is the time frame of Vaishnavism? There's no beginning and no end. It is what is being practiced in the spiritual world eternally. And it has descended into this world at the beginning of creation. And through parampara, it has been taught through the ages. Prahlad Maharaj spoke millions of years ago to his class friends. It is Sanatana Dharma. The eternal nature of the soul is to love God and to serve God in transcendental devotion. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, who in the mood of Sri Radharani's supreme love came to distribute that love to this world. An unprecedented historical event within this particular day of Brahma. Day of Brahma, 4,320,000,000 years, something. Huh? Only once in such a day of Brahma does the Supreme Lord personally appear in his original form of Krishna. And in that same day of Brahma, the Lord appears with the love of Sri Radharani to distribute that love to the world freely. That is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Srila Prabhupada said that there are many religious institutions. He said, that is not my mission to set up another one. There must be a place where people from all parts of the world have accessibility to pure, unmotivated, uninterrupted, loving service to the Supreme Lord, which is supremely personified by the residents of Vrindavan, culminating in the gopis' love. Such a high esteem of transcendental charity Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brought to the world. But of course we know that the nature of Kali Yuga is exploitation. Even the best things of Kali Yuga, people try to exploit for their own selfish interests. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he took note that even the pristine mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sampradaya was very rarely followed properly. The vast majority of so-called followers were exploiting Lord Chaitanya's name, teachings, and practices for their own egoistic purposes. Of course, we find this in every religious movement of the world. So Thakur Bhakti Vinod practically single-handedly made public attack against all of these misconceptions through his writings, through his example, through his preaching. There were followers like Jagannath Das Babaji, Gorkishore Das Babaji, Bhagavat Das Babaji, Madhusudan Das Babaji, very great personalities. But they were doing their own private service to the Lord in holy places. And meanwhile, corrupted people were trying to exploit the public through their imitation activities. He prayed for a ray of Vishnu to descend in order to assist in broadcasting the pure essence of all the treasures of the spiritual world in this world. In fulfillment to his prayer, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared in Jagannath Puri. From his infancy, he manifested such divine qualities. His father confirmed that, yes, the Lord has fulfilled my prayers. His name was Bimala Prasad. He fearlessly assisted his father in this great mission. Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed him that the world is starving, is crying for pure love of Krishna. Make Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dream a reality, that his holy name will be chanted throughout the planet. Sri Bimala Prasad assisted his father in preaching, in writing publications, in setting up printing presses, in organizing various preaching facilities. He was a genius. His whole life, he never had the slightest inclination to sense gratification. When he was in college, he set up a club where everybody who joined had to take a lifelong vow of celibacy. Do you have such clubs in the colleges in Mumbai? This was his, and he convinced so many people to do it. I don't know if anyone beside him actually completed their vow, but that was his intensity, that was his determination. He had such a vast scholarship. He mastered over all different varieties of transcendental knowledge. When he took initiation from Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he humbled himself. He humbled himself in a way that is really unprecedented. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was a simple grain merchant whose wife died, and he just took this as a wonderful opportunity to just renounce everything and become an exclusive devotee of Lord Krishna. So he was a simple man, but his realizations, his love for Krishna was so profound. He was very heavy, and he could not tolerate anything but unmotivated service. We know the story. When people would come to him for material benedictions, he would become very disturbed. It was a disturbance to his bhajan to deal with such people. And almost everyone was like that. Give me blessing, they'd say. So he would go to places where no materialistic people would want to be. On the side of the bank of the river where people would go to respond to the calls of nature in the morning. They go, and then they leave. But he would find himself in that place in that area. There was a boat that was turned upside down, and he would just sit there and chant. In the Kuliya Dharamshala, somebody wanted to build him a nice place. Nice bhajan kutir. He said, just give me one of the latrines. Because if there's a nice bhajan kutir, everyone will come to disturb me. But latrines, not so many people will come. That was his detachment. And when someone came to one of the places and said, give me blessing, he understood. He wants material blessing. Artha, kama, kama, moksha. People want wealth, they want health, they want families, they want education, they want good exam results, they want long life, they want good wives and husbands for their children. The list, Maya has created an endless list of things that people ask the Lord and His devotees. But Gaur Kishore considered all of these things a disturbance from pure devotion to God. So one person said, give me your blessing. He said, my blessing is you stay right here where I am and chant with me for the rest of your life. That person immediately ran away and never came back for another blessing. So although he was a simple man by material standards, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was such a incredible scholar, who had achieved so many academic awards, he surrendered to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj as his guru. Gave his life, his soul, his heart, his everything to him and to Thakur Bhakti Vinod. After these two great personalities departed for the spiritual world, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who had some disciples who had come to him, he felt himself utterly unqualified, bereft of their association. He was given a very, very expansive order to achieve, to spread pure devotional service according to Lord Chaitanya's teachings all over the world. He felt depressed and dejected. At one point, he vowed to chant 1 billion names of Krishna. He sat in Mayapur and completed his vow. That for him was not so difficult. But to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, it's very inconceivable. He felt himself so unqualified. He told his disciples later that he prayed. He was praying to his gurus. He's praying to Gaur Nitai. I'm all alone. How will I do it? I have no money, nothing. He had no money. He had no manpower, just a few very beginning neophyte students. He considered that he wasn't very learned. He didn't consider that he had the type of personality that had the charisma to attract others. he really considered himself totally unqualified and bereft. He cried and he prayed. And one night, he had a vision. He was living in a place called Brajapatan, which is the place that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed the Leelas of Vrindavan, not far from the Yoga Pit in Sri Mayapur Dham. In this vision, he saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with all of his associates, Gadadhar Pandit, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, Srivas Pandit Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, Swarup Damodar Goswami, and there was the 6 Goswamis along with the associates of Navadvip and Puri. And amongst them he saw all the previous acharyas, and there were his own 2 spiritual masters, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, his Diksha Guru, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur, his Shiksha Guru and father. They were all dancing together in Harinam Sankirtan, ecstatically. And they spoke to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. They told him that do not be in any anxiety, because you are not alone. Our presence will always be with you. We will make everything possible. There will be no shortage of money. There will be no shortage of qualified manpower. There will be no shortage of any facilities. Our mission will be fulfilled through you. Now proceed with great enthusiasm. You will always feel our presence. That is divine empowerment. When we think we can do anything on our own, then we are on our own. However, when we really feel ourselves utterly helpless and completely take shelter with full dependence on the higher powers of the mercy of the Lord and His devotees, only then do we have access to spiritual power. This is a continuous theme amongst the lives of Vaishnava saints. It's really incredible, because in this world, people want to be very qualified, be self-made men or self-made women. But a devotee simply wants to be an instrument of great souls and take no credit for oneself. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur felt himself dejected due to being unqualified for this impossible task. And in that state of prayer, the Lord, with all the acharyas and the various avatars of His incarnation, all appeared and told him, "We're with you. Go ahead. You are our instrument." It's wonderful in our parampara how a common theme took place in Srila Prabhupada's life. He was on the MV Jaladuta, which departed from the King George dockyards in Calcutta, sailed around India from Kanyakumari, Cape Comorin, Cochin, and in the middle of the Arabian Sea, there were storms, seasickness, heart attacks, dizziness. He was on the verge of death. And he was praying. How in this condition do you arrive in a strange place like New York with no money and nobody to help you to start a worldwide mission? Just as Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and Bhakti Vinod instructed Bhakti Siddhanta to do it, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructed Prabhupada to do it. Prabhupada was in the same type of helpless dejection as his Guru Maharaj. And he simply prayed. In his prayers, Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma and prayers to Lord Krishna, we find how he's just helplessly admitting his disqualifications, begging for mercy. And actually he was in that state. He was on the Atlantic Ocean, and he was thinking, if the Atlantic Ocean shows its regular face, he's dead. And then Krishna appeared with his various incarnations. And Prabhupada actually saw Krishna personally taking the role of the captain of the boat. He saw Krishna and his avatars taking full control over the Jaladuta to bring it safely to New York City. So after Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had that vision, he told the few people around him. And gradually, he was doing all, just in a very small way at the beginning, he was preaching here and there. Because of his powerful, powerful presence, his mastery over transcendental knowledge, and especially his pure compassion and love for all living beings. People were taking him very seriously. Gradually he went to Calcutta. He had very little facility. They got a small place, just a small house on Uttadunga Junction Road, number 1 was the address. And there he installed deities of Sri Guru Gauranga and Gandharvika Giridhari. Gradually more and more and more people were coming and joining the mission. It was there at Uttadunga Junction Road that Srila Prabhupada first met Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur on the rooftop, and at their first meeting received that order that you are an intelligent young man, you should take the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and you should, in the English language, teach it to the world. Such a prophetic instruction. The devotees were going out, trying to publish literatures, trying to distribute literatures. They were preaching at various places. There was one man who became very much attracted to the uncompromised purity of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's instruction. His name was Jagat Bandhu Dutt. This Jagat Bandhu Dutt was a businessman. And he saved wealth his whole life. He had no children to inherit his wealth. He considered that everything belonged to his guru. With tears of intense longing in his eyes, he literally fell at the feet of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and begged him to accept him as a disciple. Begged him for initiation. Now we see many people want to get initiated. Some people just like a spiritual name. Some people like to have a higher status within Vaishnava society by being initiated devotees. Some people think that it's auspicious, there's good pious credit, Krishna will give me special favor if I'm initiated. But these are all external reasons. It is not really the purpose of initiation. The real spirit of initiation is wholesale surrender. Yegatamam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham. As you approach Krishna, or as you approach his representative, that is what you're going to get in return. Just like the Vaishnavas give an example, that a king has 2 wives. And to one of the wives, he says, I will give you all the treasure house of my wealth. All the facilities of the kingdom are yours because I love you and you are my wife. And that queen says, thank you very much. And then he goes to the next queen and he offers the same thing. All of his wealth, all of his power, all of his prestige, all the facilities of the entire kingdom. And that queen says, no, I don't care for any of that. I only want one thing. I don't want your wealth. I don't want your power. I don't want your influence and facilities. I only want your love. So the king gives that queen his full love. And to the other queen, he gives everything else. But factually, with his love, everything else is included. If you do not want it, you get it anyway. But you get something millions of times greater that's satisfying to the heart. So similarly, as we approach Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate. To the degree we selflessly surrender to Krishna, Krishna gives himself. In Mahabharata, a similar story is there, where Krishna offered Arjuna or Duryodhana, I'll give you an army or myself, but I vow not to fight. So Duryodhana chose the army. And Arjuna very blissfully chose Krishna. And who won the battle? Everyone knows here in India. At least you're supposed to know. Arjuna didn't care for the soldiers. He just wanted Krishna. So this devotee, a grihasta man, he begged for initiation. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw the genuineness of his sincerity, and gave him the name Jagat Bandhu Bhakti Ranjan Das. After initiation, he said, I want to give my life to you. And my life includes everything. Sometimes people say, I want to give my life, but not this. I give you my life, but not my home, and not my influence, and not my television. But to give your life means to give everything. So he said, I want to give my life to you. Please tell me, how can I serve you? He was literally begging with tears for service. This is the real spirit of a servant. To understand the value of devotional service. We should beg for service. And when service comes, we should feel so honored and so grateful. That was his mood. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, after repeated appeals, let me serve you, please. Give me some service. Give me the honor. Give me the privilege. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted nothing for himself. Rather, he said that there's so much inconvenience for our devotees in this small little apartment that we're living. It's way overcrowded. And guests coming, they have practically no facility even to get in to see the deities. It's very tiny. The only place that had any space for him to even get lectures properly was on the rooftop. And he lived on the rooftop. And the brahmacharis and sannyasis were living on the stairs and in hallways and wherever they could fit. So he said, if you like, you can build a larger temple to facilitate the seva of the Lord and the Vaishnavas. So Sripad Jagat Bandhu Bhakti Ranjan Prabhu, he went and bought prime property in the heart of Calcutta. It was on the Kalidas Chakravarti Road in the Bagh Bazaar. And on that property, whatever he had, he used to construct a magnificent temple. It was a marble castle, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati would call it. He put so much effort into building this temple. Not only did he fund the entirety of it, but his time and energy went into all the construction. Designing, organizing, he was overseeing everything. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and the brahmacharis and sannyasis and other devotees, they were just preaching. And he just took the whole responsibility upon himself. And believe it or not, in 2 years it was completed. This was between 1928 and 1930 to build a magnificent marble temple. Here at Radha Gopinath, we've been working on renovations for 17 years, and it's still not completed. So on October 5th, 1930, there was a procession for the grand opening, where the deities of Gandharvika, Giridhari, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were put on a beautiful palanquin and brought through the streets and lanes on a Ratha Yatra type procession with chanting and dancing amongst all the devotees to bring the deities to the new temple. It was such a glorious event that practically the whole of Calcutta came to see it. Tens and thousands of people were so charmed to see the enthusiasm of the devotees and the beauty of the deities on the streets that they completely forgot about their work. They just came out to join the procession. When the deities finally arrived at the new temple, there were so many people, they were just crushing each other to get in to have the first darshan. It was wonderful. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, after the not installation, but installation in that temple of the deities, he gave a lecture. I would like to read to you an excerpt from that lecture. It is quite valuable for us to ponder upon. Now we have procured a seat for Hari Katha. We have built a castle to preach about the Lord by spending someone's entire savings of a lifetime. What was Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's idea of the purpose of the temple? It was not simply for tourists to come and take photos. It was not for the purpose of just attracting people to come and see the deities. The purpose of the temple was to procure, he said, a simple seat for Hari Katha. A place for people to come to associate with devotees and hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are 9 processes of devotional service. The beginning is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. Our spiritual lives begins by hearing. When we hear from authorized devotees whose hearts are free of malice and hypocrisy, who are genuinely representing the true Word of God, that Word, that Hari Katha, transforms the value. A seat for Hari Katha. And we have built this castle to preach about the Lord. The temple is not for the inmates to be comfortable. The temple is not for the inmates to enjoy. The temple is a facility for the devotees to serve. And what is that service? Kirtanam, Sravanam Kirtanam. To hear and to repeat the message. And to chant the holy names of the Lord. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, and we have built this castle to preach by spending an entire savings of a lifetime of one person. But we have to protect ourselves in this castle from this association of materialistic purposes. We have to defend ourselves from the confusion of the age of Kali. So we have to publish and distribute many more books. Only if we construct the temple in the form of books and in the form of ideal lives can the ideal of devotional service remain permanently in this world. Srila Maharaj ki jai. Please come and sit if you like. Let us welcome His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. And of course, His Holiness Chandramali Swami Maharaj. Huh? Where? I will repeat. Would you like me to repeat? Now we have procured a seat for Hari Katha. We have built a castle to preach about the Lord by spending someone's entire savings of a lifetime. But we have to protect ourselves in this castle from this association of materialistic persons. We have to defend ourselves from the confusion of this age of Kali. So, we have to publish and distribute many more books only if we construct the temple in the form of books and in the form of ideal lives can the ideal of devotional service remain permanently in this world. Herein Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur reveals the purpose of such a beautiful temple. The temple will not change people's lives. The temple is just a temporary facility. But what will the real temple that will transform people's hearts is the temple of books. Books means the preservation of transcendental knowledge and the distribution of that knowledge. The Holy Scriptures is the Word of God, which has been transcendentally enunciated from the pure hearts of His eternal servants. When we read the purports of the great souls, we are associating with Mahabhagavats. And in that association, our hearts change. Speaking on the subject, let us welcome His Holiness Kavichandra Swami Maharaj. And he says, and we must, only if we construct the temple in the form of ideal lives, can the ideal of devotional service remain permanently in this world. The purpose of any facility in Krishna consciousness is to give people the opportunity to associate with devotees who have ideal lives. There are so many beautiful buildings. What makes a temple so special? To the degree the people who are living in the temple and the people who are coming to the temple demonstrate ideal lives, is there really spiritual potency. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explained, there is the books and there is the people who live perfectly according to the instructions of the books. That is the real temple. That is what must be constructed. That is real preaching. How will people have faith in the books unless they see that people are actually living ideal lives according to those books? When Srila Prabhupada was asked, how will we know who is your devotee? Prabhupada said, you will know because they are perfect gentlemen and ladies. They are ideal. They are living with perfect morality, perfect ethics. They are truthful. They are humble. They are self-controlled. They are earnestly dedicated to the service of the Lord. And in so they are compassionate to other living beings. They are selfless in their service. This is ideal life. And most of all, they are increasingly becoming more and more attached to hearing about Krishna and the association of devotees and chanting the holy name. Only if we construct the temple in the form of books and in the form of ideal lives who follow the teachings of those books can the ideal of devotional service remain permanently in this world. When Sripad Bhaktiranjan Prabhu completed the construction of the temple, literally, he had nothing left. This is devotional service of very high order. Sometimes Prabhupada said, Krishna doesn't see what you give, he sees what you keep back. Well, in this case, this devotee really lived by this principle. He kept nothing in order to build this temple for the Lord as a facility for his guru to preach. Bhakti Ranjan Prabhu not only took his whole lifetime savings in the bank, but he sold his beautiful house, he sold all of his property, he sold all of his possessions, everything, to complete that temple. And he was the happiest man in the world to do it. So he had no place to live. He just accepted one simple little small room in a corner of the temple to reside. he actually gave his life. The inauguration of the temple was October 5th, 1930. On November 10th of the same year, Sripad Jagadbandhu Bhaktiranjan Prabhu departed from this world in the association of devotees. When his Guru Maharaj heard about this, he became very sad. Just as the disciple loved the Guru loved the disciple. For the rest of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's pastimes in this world, he would, from time to time, express his appreciation, his love, and his gratitude to Bhakti Ranjan Prabhu. In his letters, in his speeches, in his discourses, even in his publications, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually established in Gaudiya Math that every year on the disappearance day of this Vaishnav, that there is a celebration. And in the magazine Gaudiya, which Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was editor, he dedicated an entire edition as a memorial magazine in honor of his disciple. He was a grihastha. But it's rare to find even a sannyasi who is so surrendered. He gave everything. And his Guru Maharaj used him as an example of what real bhakti is for the rest of his preaching career. I'd like to read to you the letter that Bhakti Ranjan Prabhu wrote to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati before he left his body. Are you interested to hear? There was no pride. Usually if a person gives a brick on the wall, they want their name carved in it. Have you seen? He didn't want his name on anything. He wanted his Guru and Krishna's name on everything. Most people, when they give a lot, they consider, Gurudev, now you owe me. I've given so much, now what do you owe me? That is tendency. When people have wealth and power, they also usually, along with it, comes ego and the propensity to control. But not a trace of those qualities were in this great soul. Please listen as he poured out his heart in the last days of his life in his letter to his spiritual master. What can I give you, Gurudev? The wealth I can give you is yours. You are my treasure, and I belong to you. By giving you your property, I have nothing to lose. You knew about the sadness in my heart. Who else could I talk to? By giving you what belongs to you, I become yours. I will repeat. By giving you what belongs to you, I become yours. Jagat Bandhu Das says, O you who are the land of nectar personified, you have everything. All I have is you. This was the type of unconditional, humble service that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur inspired, even in the heart of such a simple grihasta as this. From that Gaudiya Math, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had 18 sannyasis living, many brahmacharis, and would dispatch them all for preaching. Bhakti Ranjan Prabhu also, on Guru's order, he built within the temple area a space for a printing press. First time Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had such a facility to publish and print books in quantity. There was a beautiful temple, a large conference hall, many rooms for residences, several large kitchens to cook, not only prasad for the bhoga for the deities, but prasad for the inmates and for the masses. In this way, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was sending his devotees far and wide throughout India. And he was traveling and preaching relentlessly. In just a few years, established 64 centers. Wonderful project. And before departing from this world, actually, at one point, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, on the inspiration of Thakur Bhakti Vinod, sent some of his best, most empowered and accomplished preachers to Europe to preach. There's a famous lecture where he's telling these devotees how to preach in the Western countries. What's very, very enlightening for us to contemplate today is the quality that he emphasized most is when you go to the West, you have to be in the mood of Trinadapi Sunichena Toror Ivasihishnina Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. Said you should put straw between your teeth, which is the ultimate expression of humility. Don't be in the mood of being a master. Be a servant of every living being. If you have this spirit of compassion, this spirit of service to all, then your message will have the potency to transform even the Malechas and Yavanas' hearts. Naturally, it was a very prestigious thing amongst all devotees to be chosen, to be sent to London to preach. But Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati explained what actually is the mood of a preacher. He quoted Prabodhananda Saraswati, where he explains how to preach. You put straw between your teeth. That means really humbling yourself. And then you tell others with great respect, you are very great. You are very learned. You are very nice. And then the person's very happy that you are seeing such qualities in him. Amanina manadena. Not wanting anything for oneself, but offering respect to others. That naturally, even demons, that can soften their heart. And when their heart is soft, you continue. Now, please forget everything you know and accept the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These exalted Vaishnavas, they went, and they really tried. But there was very little result. It's very difficult. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, before he left this world, he gave beautiful instructions to all of his followers. Again, emphasizing the principle of humility and respect. He told all of his devotees that we are nothing but particles of dust. This should be our aspiration. We should strive for nothing else except being dust particles at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Raghunath Das Goswamis. If you explain this to ordinary people in the world, they would put you in the psychiatric ward. Can you imagine? What do you want when you graduate from IIT? What is your aspiration in life? I want to become a dust particle at the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath and their servants. Huh? Gauranga Prabhu, what would they say? Of course, that's what you have done. Even powerful preachers, sannyasis, Jagat Bandhu, Bhakti Ranjan Maharaj, Prabhu, who was a wealthy businessman. But his only aspiration in life was simply to be a speck of dust at the lotus feet of the servant of the servant of the servant of Rupa and Raghunath. Such a high aspiration. There's actually no greater goal to achieve. Because when we become a speck of dust at the feet of the great souls, then we remain always with them in the eternal pastimes of the Lord in the spiritual world. If you want money, if you want kingdoms, if you want power, if you want fame, if you want great athletic, musical, or various other skills, you may get it. But it will all be vanquished at the time of death. Not only that, but the more you have, the more anxiety there is to maintain it. There's no real inner satisfaction. And it is all crippled and crumbles. Cripple and crumble by the power of time. Who could deny? So why aspire for such virtually useless diversions from the real goal? We have no power to enter into the spiritual world. If we think we do, we're in illusion. But if we simply become a speck of dust at the feet of the great souls who are genuinely serving Rupa and Raghunath, then we'll go wherever they go. We'll be in the spiritual world with them. By their mercy, by the mercy of their lotus feet, they will take us back home, back to Godhead, where we inherit all the treasures of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The treasure of divine love. So this was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's instruction. Do not strive for anything else but to be a speck of dust at the lotus feet of the Lord's servants, headed by Sri Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. And he told his devotees that do not be disappointed by failure. Do not be disappointed by persecution. Do not be disappointed by being blasphemed. Do not be disappointed by any of the reversals of this world, because they will come. It is part of this world. But always remain fixed in our attachment to our vow of chanting the holy names and hearing about Krishna. Always remain united in cooperation with one another to spread this mission of compassion to the world. And with these instructions, he gave his last blessing. Just a couple of weeks before he departed from this world, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that great Acharya, who was simultaneously so gentle, so humble, with such a soft, loving heart, was like a thunderbolt to destroy all misconceptions and hypocrisy, who exposed deviations as a humble service to all humanity. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur sent that wonderful letter to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was living in Bombay at the time. So we're very fortunate to be here in Bombay. It is a very, very sacred place for Prabhupada's Leela. He wrote a letter from here, and he said, I am Grihastha. Your sannyasis and brahmacharis, they are doing so much service for you. Please tell me how I can serve you. And back in this letter came the same instruction as in their first meeting. take the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and bring it to the Western world in the English language. Actually, all over the world. That includes India. Prabhupada took that order as his life and soul. When he was just about 50 years old, he retired from his occupational duties. He became Vanaprastha and was working so hard to try to establish the mission of his Guru. During those years, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur appeared to Srila Prabhupada several times in dreams and was telling his dear disciple to take sannyas and travel and preach. Yesterday we were listening to the lecture of Srila Prabhupada, where Prabhupada was explaining he had a family. He had children and wife and so many obligations. Of course, he was at that age of retirement coming. His family was becoming more self-sufficient. But still, when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati appeared to him, said, "Come and preach with me. Take sannyas." What were Prabhupada's thoughts? Prabhupada said he was horrified. But not only Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur came and instructed him again and again, but Prabhupada's godbrothers were also pushing him. Prabhupada actually said, "No, it was my Guru Maharaj through my godbrothers pushing me." In 1959, he accepted sannyas. For the same purpose, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur took sannyas. For the same person, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. As a facility to be an instrument of compassion, to preach, to give love of God to others. On Prabhupada's sannyasa initiation day, they asked him to give a lecture. His guru, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, sannyas guru, usually the guru gives the lecture. He spoke a little, but he actually asked one of the candidates for initiation to give lecture. Very extraordinary. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was so pleased with Prabhupada's perfect grasp of the essence of the philosophy that he actually ordered his leaders, whatever Abhay Charanaravinda Prabhu, whatever he writes, print it. In Bombay, he helped establish the first Gaudiya Math here with two of his dear godbrothers, sannyasis. And they appealed to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He came here to install the deities. And at that time they said, Abhay Babu, he's such an incredible manager, kirtan singer, preacher, he should be the president. At that time Prabhupada was here, he had a pharmacy not far from here. Shamsundar Prabhu actually knows where it is. It's very close to where we are now. Prabhupada showed him that place long ago. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "No, let him go on what he is doing. In due course of time, he will do everything." So during that sannyas initiation, it was in Mathura. There was just a handful of Bengalis and Brijavasis there. Besides a couple people there, nobody spoke English. It was all Brijavasi and Hindi speakers. But Prabhupada gave the lecture in English. Now you may think, well, how is that practical? Understand Prabhupada's heart. In his heart was burning. Simply he was taking sannyas to fulfill the order of his guru. His order of his guru was to preach in the English language, which was the most universal language on the planet. Srila Prabhupada later on traveled around the world 13 times, spreading the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the order of his Guru Maharaj. Translated and wrote purports in the English language to what? About 60 volumes of books. And they have been translated perhaps 100 languages. Tens and millions of these books have been distributed in various languages all over the world. Today, about 400 centers and millions, tens of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people have heard the name of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada had access to heads of state, prime ministers, leaders of great religions of the world, great scholars of the academy, of the universities. They respected him. They honored him. They wanted to meet him. But Srila Prabhupada always remained fixed in his pure spiritual consciousness. Said, I have no qualification except I'm simply fulfilling the order of my spiritual master. It is all the power of my guru. Prabhupada never thought himself anything but an instrument of the mercy of his guru. Yes, Srila Prabhupada perfectly understood and practiced that sacred instruction of his Guru Maharaj, to aspire for nothing else but to be a speck of dust at the lotus feet of Sri Rup and Raghunath. And what immense transcendental power can be manifest from such a speck of dust. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I thank you very much. Maharaj, would you like to speak some words?
Mirandasya Chaksura Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam. I'll try to be concise. Krishnadas Kaviraj said that, what is it? Absolute truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. And we work for that. Hare Krishna. I was listening to everybody's offerings at the Vyas Puja the other day, and then I was thinking that it's nice when everybody tries to focus on good qualities of someone, and you see how the devotees they're revealing what they want to be themselves. We're all aspiring to something better, or we wouldn't come to Krishna consciousness. And as long as we can keep our mind on great personalities, their pastimes and their qualities, then we can always aspire. Then we'll be enthusiastic. We see if we ever think, no, I've made it, or I'm advanced enough, then immediately we're going to go down, right? We won't stay anywhere very long. So in any field, any business, they say you should always be trying to make your business bigger, always trying to do better, even if you're just competing with yourself. So keeping our mind on the great soul, especially someone like Bhakti Siddhanta, Saraswati, Thakur, his activities were so wonderful, and Srila Prabhupada, of course, perfectly followed. Prabhupada said many times that I haven't done anything except follow the order of my spiritual master. People think I've done a miracle. Results come because of that. A simple thing. Krishna wants us to be humble. In order to be humble, we have to think someone is better than us, and we have to take guidance from someone, inspiration, and then that pleases Krishna. And when Krishna and the previous acharyas are pleased, we see what can happen. We just look around here. Miraculous. Bombay, even materially, we drove through that Mahim today. It's a miracle that all those people are somehow living there, right? Krishna, if anyone doubts that Krishna is maintaining everybody and thinks he won't take care of you, then you should drive through there. How they're living, and I don't know where they get water, where they get anything, but somehow everybody's living. But then spiritually, we're more interested if we see. We only heard what Juhu was when Prabhupada first saw Juhu. What was that, 1965? It was just a swamp and some dacoits living there, and a jungle kind of full of rats. And somehow or other he thought, in the whole area there was nothing, except on the beach some rich people and a few of the hotels. But somehow he thought this would be a good place for a temple. He was seeing it every day because he was walking past there. I think he walked to the Andheri station to save the bus. And then what manifested, we've seen. Of course, the whole of Juhu has changed, but the temple also. And nobody agreed with Srila Prabhupada, except obviously the Krishna. And previous acharyas, the devotees didn't agree with them. The lawyer told the devotees, you can never win this case, and even if you do, it's a waste of time. The place is useless. Nobody will come here. But Srila Prabhupada knew. So that's what we want to meditate on, all these things. And then learn to see the good in every devotee, and every person actually, because everyone is a devotee. So this thinking and becoming very small speck of dust. And how great is Krishna. I'm hoping to develop that mentality. We have maybe, many, many lifetimes of endeavor before us and after us. But as long as we are trying to go forward, trying to do something, improve ourselves in any way, then Krishna will be pleased. We have to take shelter of the great devotees and all devotees. And Prabhupada, that's one of the things, I didn't see him so much, but just giving class. But one day in Los Angeles, he just said, Krishna has given me so many gurus. So, and then he stopped, and everybody was, really silent. And then he said, my disciples. So he was revealing this Mahabhagavad, consciousness. Although he acted as the spiritual master, and he said, do this and don't do that. And, his real consciousness, but he was learning from everybody. So I hope you can all bless me. And thank you for being here. And I hope to see many, many more temples in Bombay. It's such a huge city. So many people here. We're making, little dents, but we want to make, be determined, like this. If you drive from here to, I didn't have time to count, but if you drive from here to Juhu, this Will's Tobacco Company, they must have spent many, many crores of rupees for signboards, right? Designing them and putting them up and paying for them. And they're very determined to spread their mission, which is demoniac. But we want to be like that also. We want everyone to, everywhere people look, they're going to see something Krishna, Hare Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. They're going to see devotees. This is what the world needs. Srila Prabhupada said that so many times, almost every lecture, nothing else can save the world. He always threw that in. This nothing but this movement. Nothing but this Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said, if there's no other books except Srimad Bhagavatam, there'd be no problem. We may need the computer manual or something, but we wouldn't need computers actually. Everybody was only reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We wouldn't need all the other things. Nobody would worry to be happy. He just decided to come. And Tota Gopinath. Very special. And where did Gopal go? He transformed himself into Tota Gopinath. Yeah, he sat down. He's tired. When Krishna was holding up Govardhan Hill, Mother Yasoda was always worried that he was tired and he was hungry and he should eat and so many things. He must have made her happy by sitting down. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Also, I think what a fortunate mother Radhanath Swami had to have such a son. Even to have one child who's a devotee, the parent has benefited so much, but then to have millions of grandchildren, right? So thinking of, like everybody, she must have thought about all these devotees so much. So fortunate. A devotee is doing great service for everybody just by being a devotee. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare.
So I have 30 seconds. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachayani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarane. This morning, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was speaking from Srimad Bhagavatam, describing the qualities of the Vaishnava. And I was just reflecting on one verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna explains the 20 items of knowledge. And he actually, in that particular verse, all the items of knowledge that are described are actually qualities of a Vaishnava. And of course, Prabhupada explains in the purport that without devotional service or unalloyed devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, these actually qualities actually have no real foundation or no real substance. But it's interesting to see what actually knowledge is. And Krishna explains, Namanina Mamanadena. He says that humility, pridelessness, non-violence, detachment, all the qualities of a Vaishnava are actually considered to be the actual source of real knowledge. He doesn't speak about vast learning of scripture or accumulation of various types of information or any type of label that may come from an educational achievement. Simply talks about qualities, humility, pridelessness, non-violence, compassion, and detachment. But then he goes on to explain that without devotional service to the Lord, actually none of these qualities really have any real meaning or substance. So actually that is the real quality, to understand the importance and to act on that importance by engaging in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the course of that devotional service, developing the qualities of a Vaishnava. And from there, everything else is revealed to the devotee in the course of his devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Radhanath Maharaj has been emphasizing this point over and over again in his lectures, how we have to work on developing our devotional qualities and practice devotional service selflessly. Because really devotional service, when you actually get down to the definition of it, is a selfless affair. There's nothing selfish about devotional service. Material life means selfish because apparently in material life you're told that you need something. And therefore, in your pursuit of activities in this world, you have to get things. But in spiritual life, you don't need really anything. You only need your service to Krishna. You only have to connect with Krishna in devotional service. And everything else is provided through that. So, in order to really understand that we don't need anything, is to engage in devotional service with a desire to please Krishna. And to please Krishna's devotees by spreading Krishna consciousness. And that is the mood of a Vaishnava, and that is the foundation that Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas gave for this ISKCON society. It's a movement of compassion, it's a movement of selflessness. And that was Srila Prabhupada's constant preaching, and the preaching of his genuine followers, to somehow or other take what we have gotten in devotional service and to give it to others. And Krishna takes care. Krishna says, Anayan chintayan tomam ye jana paryupastate te san nityabhayuktanam yogashema vaham yaham. I carry what you lack and I preserve what you have. Simply engage in my devotional service. If we have that faith, then everything else will automatically come in due course of time. So that is real knowledge, to surrender to Krishna and to engage in his devotional service. And I can see here, after coming each year, year after year, it's amazing. It's always expanding, it's always increasing, there's always more devotees, there's more projects, and the enthusiasm seems to be increasing year after year. Because here the mood is that. And all of you have come to somehow or other be a part of this project. Take advantage, more and more associate with these devotees, engage in devotional service, whatever you can. Prabhupada says we have our mind, we have our intelligence, we have our life, we have our resources. Whatever we can use in Krishna's service. And then actually, as Maharaj explained in his beautiful story about Jangat Bandhu, he said, actually, I'm simply giving what belongs to you back to you. That's all. It's all yours anyway. And Srila Prabhupada explained, you come into this world with nothing, and you leave in the same way. So the opportunity to have things is the opportunity to use those things in devotional service. And then those items actually become sources of our happiness. Whether it's something on the gross level, or it's whether it's our intelligence, our mind, whatever else we have been given by the grace of the Lord. So please take advantage of this wonderful movement. It's a movement of compassion, it's a movement of giving, but the most amazing thing about it is that through that you get everything, by the mood of giving. So as long as we can meditate on that mood, we realize we don't need anything but to engage in Krishna's service. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and be a part of this program, and I thank Maharaj for the wonderful work he's doing in spreading Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings everywhere. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.